Hello, and welcome to the Student Experience podcast, where we'll be chatting to members of the University of Suffolk community, giving them the opportunity to share their experience with us. I'm Sam, and I'm a member of the Student Experience team, and in today's episode, we're joined by Reilly Willis, who is the undergraduate law course lead. We discussed the undergraduate law course available at the university, opportunities for students after graduating, and Reilly's journey to becoming a lecturer. So, Reilly, thanks for joining us today. Would you like to firstly introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Dr. Reilly Willis. I am a senior lecturer in law, and I'm also the course leader for undergraduate law here at the university.
Fantastic, and thank you for coming on. It feels like we've had this book for ages. So. With like what you just said, could you give us an overview of the undergrad law courses from level 4 through to level 6?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, we offer what's called an LLB in law. Mm-hmm. So that means it's a qualifying law degree. So there are 7 core subjects that have to be taught in order to be a qualifying law degree. We cover all 7 of them, which means that if you do want to go on to train to be a barrister, mm-hmm. our LLB qualifies you to go on to that training. And we have also, in the world of law, they've recently moved to what's called a solicitor's qualifying examination. So that is now how you qualify to become a solicitor. Mm-hmm. It used to be through training contracts and law firms, but now it's an exam, which makes it more accessible. So you no longer need a qualifying law degree to become a solicitor, but in order to pass that exam, it is a good idea to have a law degree. And so we've recently redesigned our course, mm-hmm. and we have redesigned it to map onto that SQE, that exam. Okay. So all of the topics that are covered on the SQE are also an integral part of our law course. And the SQE is really interesting. It's both core knowledge, but it's also skills-based. And we've definitely woven that through the course here. So there's a lot of, they call it functional legal knowledge, FLK for short, if you want to be in the know. So we do a lot of functional legal knowledge work throughout the whole course, from day 1 through to day final.
Yeah, it's important, like you said, to keep that going all the way through, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Things in, like, by the time you hopefully get to your final year, there's still things that sometimes you need that reminder of, isn't there, really? Why am I doing this? What is this core skill? I remember learning about it at level 4, but you know,
why?
Yeah, exactly. Just that reminder, reflection, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are some of the ways which students can expect to be assessed as they sort of move through level 4 through to level 6?
Again, something I think we really pride ourselves on in the law course is that we have an extremely diverse portfolio of assessments. So you'll have a little bit of everything. There will be exams. Yeah, that does happen. However, we think that's actually a really important part of the course, because if you do want to be a barrister or a solicitor or a qualified legal exec, you know, there's a whole bunch of different routes you can go down with a law degree. Most of them involve some kind of exam to fully qualify. So we do think it's really important that you have practice at that.
So at least once a year, you will have an exam. I quite like exams. And little secret, I know they're hard, so I'm usually quite easy on the marking. But don't tell my students that. So yeah, we do have exams. They are written exams. We have some oral exams where you do sit in a room and pretty much chat about what you've learned.
Oh, wow.
We have some written coursework, and that can be anything from a traditional essay to a more lengthy piece of writing. We have portfolios where you'll be working on several different pieces throughout a module and then put those together in a portfolio. We have reflective assignments where you think about what you've learned and you know, reflect on the experience. And another unique thing is that we have a very realistic mock courtroom here on campus. And we try to do a lot of assessments in the courtroom, because what gives you better experience than that legal environment?
Exactly.
So we do a lot of advocacy assessments, which are, you know, in the courtroom. So you are arguing a case or representing a client, or having some kind of courtroom experience that's then actually assessed. In your third year, we do a final independent project. So that's a really big part of the course as well. Yes. Some students will do a traditional research dissertation. Some students do things that are more project-based. And for the first time this year, we have added in a poster element to that module. So all students will produce a large poster. You can't see this because this is audio only, but I'm now holding my hands up as if I were pointing to a poster. So yeah, they will produce a large poster that gives an overview of their project and what they did. And our poster day is a collaborative effort across the School of Social Sciences and Humanities. Yes, yep. So the law students, the psychology students, and I think possibly criminology students and sociology students will all have their posters on display the same day. So we will be going around and marking, and the students will be talking about their posters and answering some questions, but it's meant to really be a celebration for our final year students to say, wow, look at all these amazing projects that you guys have done, and law students can wander around the psychology posters and vice versa and just, see what everyone has done in a big celebratory day. And one of our students had the loveliest idea that at the end of it, they can all sign the back of each other's posters as a, memory of their time here. And I was, wiping the tears away.
A bit like the signing the shirt on your last day of school kind of thing.
I know,
it's
exactly.
That end of an era type thing. Oh, that sounds amazing. And like you said, it helps that element of reflection, having in front of you that physical evidence. Look at all of this that you've poured. I mean, I remember from dissertation when I was an undergrad, you put everything into it, and to have it there and to be able to explain it to the course team, and I loved that part of it. I was very nervous. I remember doing my poster part of it, but and just like you said, I love the fact that a lot of the courses do cross over. Like you said, it's the criminology students, sociology, psychology, and it's a great, like you say, it's a big celebration. It sounds like it's going to be amazing. Have to try and be around for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the several other courses have transitioned to a poster in previous years. This is the first time the law course is doing it. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Amazing.
But yeah, so that's some of our assessments.
That's an incredible variety though, isn't it? Because it means there's something there for every learning style from the sounds of it. Like you said, some people prefer exams. Some people would rather, portfolios are great because like you said, there's constant pieces that you're putting together to make one thing. So it sounds great. It sounds like something for everybody there, really.
And they're all quite authentic assessments as well. So every assessment we try to design in a way that has some link to a potential career. It's something that will give you a skill or an experience or a way to demonstrate your knowledge that we know will then link to some kind of job or employment opportunity in the future. And I think that's really important as well, that everything does have a purpose. Whether it's obvious or not, I promise it does.
It's like you said, sometimes you have to point out to students, this is why we're doing it. But most of the time you hope that they understand, right, this is why I'm doing it this way. But yeah, it can be tricky.
One of our reflective portfolio assessments, I literally ask them, why do you think we did this? So I forced them to think about that.
So you mentioned about the variety and posters that the students will be doing. What sort of key areas of law do they tend to learn about or want to learn about?
So we do have quite a lot of optionality in our law course here, which is great. I really appreciate that. So we have a very wide variety. Again, law is quite a prescriptive subject. So there are certain areas that we have to teach. So everyone will take things like constitutional law, criminal law, contract law. There's, like I said, 7 of those core subjects that everyone will take. But I do find that the dissertations and these final projects, they all tend to relate to things students have opted to take. So our optional modules, we have quite a few optional modules that do focus on different areas of criminal law. So we do have a lot of that. We have family law. And this is just a snippet of what we offer. We do intellectual property law. I do international law and international human rights. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, in the next year or two to start offering health law
Oh, that would be amazing.
Which would be really exciting. Yeah. I have a health background. And so that's something that I'm really keen to bring to our course as well. So, so there's lots of different areas in that optionality for our students, and we tend to see that reflected in their projects. We also see, and I'm sure this is a question you're going to ask later, but I'll just jump in with this now. We offer what's called a clinical legal placement module, and that is a year-long module where students are placed in a working environment for 1 day a week throughout the whole academic year. And mostly that is with various law firms in the area. So we have dedicated placements at a whole bunch of law firms. But students can also work in the Legal Advice Center. We have some students who've been at Citizens Advice, and we're developing new placements all the time. We have students who've worked in the legal department at the NHS, in the council. So we got a whole range of placements. And we also find that, unsurprisingly, students' final projects tend to reflect something that they've done in their placement, something that they've seen, an area of law that has really struck them, a lot of, well, this is what is written in the law, but when I was on my placement, that is not what I saw. And really exploring that socio-legal aspect that we embed within our course as well.
I mean, that's literally answer we were saying about the work experience opportunities. You've literally, I think I knew probably about 2 of those. So it's amazing that there are so many other opportunities. I know about obviously the law centre, which is amazing. I think when we've had students who are in the past, they've talked about backgrounds and things like music law and things. But health law sounds like it'd be, especially with all of the things going on in the current climate, it would be amazing for students to know more about that. But yeah, I had no idea there were so many different placements. That sounds incredible. And like you said, it obviously impacts them on students enough to want to talk about it in their final project as well, to say, right, okay, well, I can do a real critical review of this. This is what's supposed to be happening, but it's not always in practice for whatever reason and things, and just doing that deep dive really, isn't it? But
yeah,
wow,
absolutely.
That's incredible.
So when it talks about the journey between level 4 and level 6, and I think one of the questions which prospective students have is, how does the dissertation work? That's often the big final step for students. So how does that work in the law degree?
So very, very timely question. We've just started. So very quickly, I don't know if people listening will know, but we teach in what's called a block format here at the university, which means students take one module at a time. I am a total convert now, and I've actually published papers about how wonderful block is and how much I love teaching on block. And I'm presenting at we're hosting a big international conference here at the university on block learning next month. I will be presenting there because that is how much I love block learning. So point being, we're just going into the final block of the year. So our level 5 students are now taking what's called research methods in law. And in fact, we had a sort of optional session about 6 weeks ago with those level 5 students to start thinking about their final independent project. So we start roughly halfway through the second year thinking about what might you want to do. And that's a really hard question.
Yes.
Really, really hard question. And, students tend to think either I have no idea or I have too many ideas.
Worse sometimes, isn't it?
And so we spend a lot of time at level 5 just really supporting students to think through, what do you want to do? And we're very lucky in our law team. We have a very diverse group of teaching staff. And therefore, that means we're able to supervise pretty much anything. Even if it can't be exactly what the student wants to do, we can kind of massage it enough that we can then supervise that project, which I think is brilliant. So students are, for better or worse, almost unlimited in their choices.
Yeah, sometimes it's not all you're like, because it's too much choice. I don't want to choose. Or it's not enough words to cover what I want to talk about.
It's very, very true. So just yesterday we had our first teaching session for research methods, and they spend this whole block, which is 5 weeks, developing a proposal for what their independent project is going to look like. So it's a very, very supported model. So I'm there with them really hand-holding throughout this process to help them develop a project that is workable, that is feasible, that's something they're keen to do. You know, I said this a bazillion times yesterday. You're going to be doing this for more than a year.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So no matter how much you love your topic now, there will be a point next year when you hate it.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. That is part of the natural process. So make sure it's something you really love.
Definitely.
Because if you are kind of ambivalent about it now, it's going to make next year such a slog.
Definitely.
Such a slog. So, yeah.
Definitely. It's the thing, isn't it? It's and almost in some cases with regards to research, you kind of, sometimes we've heard students say they'd rather do their independent project where there is little research, so they can really home in on that fact that there needs to be more research in that area. And I do remember in level 5, I really was not a fan of research methods at all. By level 6, loved it, absolutely loved like learning what goes into research. That there's so many different factors to it. And yeah, I didn't want to give my dissertation in the end. It was almost like my baby. I was like, I don't want them to pull it to bits. But like, yeah, so it is, I completely echo what you say, but it has to be something you're really wanting to focus and home in on, really, because like you said, it's going to stay with you for a long time. So.
Well, absolutely. And I also tell students it's got an employability factor as well, because you write on your, you know, all students, and I think some students don't think about this, but you absolutely should put on your CV what your independent project topic or dissertation topic was.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Write down who your supervisors were. And, you know, we see a lot of employers pick up on that in interviews. Wow. And it is such a good opportunity for students to demonstrate their dedication to a particular area of law. I mean, if you write your dissertation on an issue in family law, and then you want to go work in family law, and maybe you're applying for a really competitive job in a firm that specializes in family law, off the bat, you are already ahead of the competitors because you've demonstrated to them, I've spent over a year in my independent project of my own choice, immersing myself in this cutting edge issue in family law. Yeah. And what a brilliant way to be able to show off your skills in an interview as well. Because if there's one thing you can talk about at the end of your final year, it's your independent project, right? So it gives students a lot of confidence in interviews because they can speak about it with authority. So it is a really important thing. And I think we talked about that in research methods as well, to say, look, maybe you want to pick something that relates to what you're looking to do when you leave because of that signal to employers. And equally, I said to students, or maybe if you are completely convinced you want to go into a particular area of law, this is your last chance to do something else. Right? So pick really something that maybe you know you're not going to be doing when you graduate, because it's your last chance to explore that area.
Definitely. That's so interesting. I've never heard about it being involved in an interview process, but it really does make sense because, like you said, you've immersed yourself in this project for so long, and you can literally pick out, if you go into that, if you do get offered that particular role, you can say, look, this is an area I would like to continue research, and I'd like to continue within this sector, like you say, with family law and things like that. So interesting. I've never heard that concept before of just going into an interview and incorporating your dissertation into that. That's great.
Absolutely.
Really
absolutely.
Important.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad I tell my students that.
No, I've never honestly heard it. That's such a great piece of advice to give to students. Like you said, either way, choose something you're really interested in, or choose something, this is your only chance you're really going to get to do a deep dive into it. Yeah. It's really great.
So, for some people listening, they've heard about dissertations and, that it's maybe daunting. Could you, if we use family law as an example, could you sort of chat a bit about how the structure of it works? Is it 10,000 words and they do introduction, literature review, and then their own research? How does it sort of work?
So it is 10,000 words, yeah, plus or minus the beautiful 10%.
Yeah.
Very important, 10%.
Yeah, which every student says, I do get the extra 10%, right? I say, yes, you do.
You hang on to that 10% sometimes.
Yeah. Although, obviously, most students tend to want as many words as possible, not the other way around. And it's interesting. We have moved from a strict dissertation model to an independent project model, which means if students come across a some kind of policy work or a project-based piece of work that maybe they came out of their placements, then they can pursue that in their final year as well. So most students tend to do research because it's a bit easier to fit around other studies and it's a bit more straightforward. But some students do more project-based work, which means their final product looks different. So a traditional dissertation would have a literature review. There would be a section detailing their research design. So what was the theory that they used? What is their methodological approach? What methods did they choose and why? And we then dive into, and this is the data that I collected, whether it be traditional, what we call doctrinal work, which is using statutes and cases, or whether it's more empirical work, so doing interviews or surveys, all of which we've had. And then it's coming up with some, conclusions to that. Yeah. And that's the basic idea. So pretty standard format. But again, we have students who do things that are a bit innovative and unusual. And we're really happy to support that and look at things that don't fit the traditional A, B, C, and D.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Like you said, I think a lot of outside, hopefully prospective students, they probably do come in thinking it's going to be very traditional, very clear cut. But like you said, as lecturers, it must be amazing for you to get to mark those pieces where it's like, wow, this is so original. And like you said, innovative as well. And it sort of breaks that mold that everybody thinks a standard independent project has to be, really. But I'm guessing as long as they follow the guidelines.
Yeah, I have to say that the highest mark I've ever given on an independent project was one that broke the mold. And wow, I was so blown away by this work. It was incredible. I mean, it was really a fantastic piece of work, and it did not follow the traditional setup. It was very, very innovative. The student essentially used a huge amount of literature to critique a new policy and a new potential piece of legislation. Mm-hmm. So it was essentially this extended literature review, but it wasn't a systematic review where the literature is your data. Mm-hmm. It was using all of this amazing research that's out there in the world to say, and does this policy and potential legislation actually reflect what the literature said? It was such a brilliant piece of work. Wow. Oh my goodness. It was years ago at this point as well. And I still think back to that and I think, wow.
I think you can
so good
pieces here and through the library. I think certain dissertations get uploaded as far as I'm aware.
They do. I don't know if this one.
Yeah, that would be good to have a look at. So.
I know. I do have permission for this student to share it with current students. So I can pop it onto our online learning environment for our current students to see, which I like doing because I can say, look, this is not a introduction, literature review, research design, data conclusion, right? Yeah. This is different and it's brilliant. So yeah, and we also now have the Journal of Suffolk Student Research, which I am a very, very big supporter of. And I do a lot of manuscript reviews for the journal. And that journal is a full-on proper academic journal that is indexed and searchable and properly published. And it is for students who have done really well on their dissertations, their research projects. And when they're done, they can then publish them. So I'm very, very encouraging of our students to consider that as an option once they graduate. And it's for undergraduates or postgraduate taught courses as well. So yeah, huge fan of that journal. They just had their first conference a few weeks ago.
Brilliant. Very, really exciting to be a part of that. I really enjoyed it.
It was a great day and it was so uplifting to see students who had done, proper professional research. There is no reason why some of these pieces of research aren't at the same level as some, other professional published pieces. So it was great to see. So yeah, that's another great opportunity for our students in doing research.
Completely agree. I loved it. I'd quite happily go every month if they wanted to.
I know.
On that often.
I was really sad. They said they're only going to do it every other year. And I was like, oh no. know, but I understand it's a big endeavor.
Yeah,
So,
really, really great. Like you said, some really, really interesting pieces of research, and you could see some of the students were really anxious, but once they got into the flow, they knew what they were talking about. It's their project. They've put, like we said, they've really put everything into it, so they want to share it. And I think there was the one alumni student now, she'd obviously hadn't spoke about this particular piece of research in the last few years because COVID had impacted on her being able to actually present it. And then she got to actually share it with a room of people and her peers. And it was so inspiring, really, really.
Her research made me cry.
Yes,
it was really emotional and moving. And I was like, no, it's just allergies.
Something in my eye.
Yeah.
Bit of dust. But opportunities like that really, really important, definitely to, like you said, our undergrad and our postgraduate students. So it gives them that confidence to really go into the world of research as well. But yeah.
I think one of the things that prospective students find most difficult is once they've decided a subject that they want to learn is choosing what university they want to go to. So from a law perspective, what would you say makes our university here stand out to maybe some other universities that do law?
Yeah, so we and I did say this a little bit earlier, so I'm gonna swing back round to it. But employability is really one of our strong selling points, I would say. We are extremely focused on supporting our students from day one to think about what they want to do with their law degree, and then to personally help support them to get there by the end. So, for example, in our first year, students take a module called Ethics, Justice, and the Legal Profession.
Wow.
And we spend a lot of time in that, so embedded in the curriculum, in that module, talking about different jobs, different career paths, what students need to do to get on that career path, what they need to have accomplished by the end of their time here. We do parts of that module are done in partnership with our careers team here. So they come in and we do some great stuff in there. We have a CV workshop. We do mock interviews here in this recording studio.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So we use the Interview 365 software. So it's a virtual interview that's recorded and they get immediate AI feedback, and then we give them feedback as well. So they actually have that experience. We get the VR headsets in.
They're fantastic.
Yeah,
they really are.
So students do a lot of interview practice using VR headsets, as well as public speaking skills, and alongside that, stress management using the VR headsets. We introduce one of the key psychometric tests that are used to interview potential, usually in law firms. So a psychometric test is essentially an online multiple choice test.
Okay.
Law firms tend to use one called Watkins-Glaser. So we do a whole session on that with our students. So we really, when we want to do that in their first year, to say, let's think about what do you want to do? What do you want to do with this degree? Yeah. Other than immerse yourself in law and learn and expand your knowledge, do you have a career goal? Is that why you're here? What is that career goal? And you need, in law, it can be quite competitive. So you do need to start thinking about it early so you can build up your CV, tick all the boxes you need to tick. So we spend time in the first year looking at that to make sure students are kind of on track. And then that gives us as staff the opportunity to support students individually and personally throughout that journey. So I think that's a really unique aspect of the offering here, that focus on employability. And, the proof is in the pudding. So we have a growing body of alumni who have fantastic jobs. Some here, some further afield. Here, I mean in Ipswich. Yeah. We have, again, linking to that clinical legal placement module, we have a lot of students who've been offered jobs off the back of those placements. Which obviously we can't guarantee that every time, but it's a lovely thing to see. And, we really have, I'll go ahead and say it, quite an impressive collection of alumni jobs, which really shows the breadth of what you can do and what we can support students to do. And it is a lot of our partnerships and networking opportunities with local employers that does result for our students. And that's a great thing. So I think employability is unique. I think we have, Laura, you mentioned earlier, the Legal Advice Centre. And I'm going to go ahead and pat myself on, or ourselves on the back with this and say it is an award-winning legal advice center. So so a legal advice center essentially gives students the opportunity to, as it says, give legal advice. Okay. It is supported by staff, and it is supervised by qualified solicitors. So everything is obviously checked and double checked. Yes. But we, clients come in and they have legal problems, and it is our students who do the interviewing and who draft their letters of advice. And we offer advice in 2 key areas: family law and for startup businesses. And these were 2 areas that Eleanor Scarlett, who's the director of the Legal Advice Center, did a lot of local research to see what was needed in the area. And those were 2 really clear key areas. And that is quite unique for a legal advice center to do those 2 areas, particularly startup businesses. And what is, a lot of law schools and a lot of law courses do have a legal advice center, but ours is a bit unique in those areas that we offer, but also in the fact that we allow students to volunteer in the Legal Advice Center from day one.
That's amazing.
And any student can volunteer. So a lot of other legal advice centers say you can't do it until your 2nd or 3rd year. Okay. And a lot of other legal advice centers have caps on the number of students. We don't, which means if from day one you want to start, you can. And we do see a lot of our level 4 students volunteering at the Legal Advice Center because the experience you get, I mean, in your first year to be interviewing real people, right? Clients, and then giving them advice, it's a wonderful experience. So I think that's quite unique for our law course here as well.
I didn't know any of that, so that is amazing. We keep obviously seeing things on obviously our staff hub about the Legal Advice Centre, but hearing, like you said, that there's no limit to how many students can go and do it. They're always supervised, obviously, and they've always got that guidance there as to what. But to actually, like you said, work with air quotes, real people. It's amazing. What an opportunity! And like you said, just most, like you said, placements tend to happen from the 2nd year onwards in a lot of other cases, but to actually say, no, you can go in there now, you can get that practice going, you can start getting those examples of what happens in these kind of places in the real world and things like that. And actually, that's fantastic. It's so good to know we have that on campus. We should be pushing it more. So
I do. Yeah, absolutely. Well, in fact, the Legal Advice Center, it's not out there yet, but they've just done a really great video about their work. So a little film, which, I don't know when this will be released, but watch some spaces because that will be coming out. Yeah. Definitely. So, and that talks about all these different aspects as well. So that is coming out soon. And the Legal Advice Center also hosts an annual law lecture. So we've had the most amazing speakers so far. So our first year we had Lady Hale. Yes. Who was just incredible. Such an amazing, powerful woman. And last year we had Sir Brian Levison.
Yes,
who's
I'm so upset to miss that. I really wanted to come. So.
That was great, yeah. And what I really loved, particularly about the Brian Levison lecture, was that idea to invite him came from a first-year law student volunteering in the Legal Advice Center. And this student said, wouldn't that be an interesting speaker? Wow. And we said, yep, let's go make it happen. And then, 9 months later, he was here and she got to meet him. Yeah. It was really incredible. So, and we do know who's going to be doing the law lecture this year, but I don't think it's public. I know. I'm like jumping out of my seat. I'm so excited about it. But so that will be coming out. That will be coming out soon as well. So we've got really another one that every year I think, how is Eleanor and the Legal Advice Center, how are they gonna top this next year? And then each year, bam. So I don't know. Yeah, it just goes from strength to strength. It's a great day in our annual calendar.
Definitely. I'll definitely keep an eye out for the next one. I'll try and squeeze it. I know Lily, our colleague within the student experience team, went because she's law alumni from another institution, and she was raving about it when she came back. Honestly, it was such a great opportunity for students to meet this person who's so highly regarded within law, and in general he's really highly regarded. But she was very much raving about it. So
yeah, and it isn't just on paper. Students do actually get to meet the speakers. So the students who volunteer with the Legal Advice Centre are invited prior to the lecture up in our courtroom to have a little meet and greet with some coffee and snacks with the speaker. So they do actually get to meet them.
Nothing's gone the CV.
And me too. You know, I'm a little like, wow.
Oh, that's fantastic. So obviously you've given us lots of reasons why to choose the law course here at the university. So you're saying you did cover a little bit around support available to students. So is there any other support provisions that are available to students? So things like the PAC sessions and things like that, and supervisors?
Yeah, absolutely. We it was really interesting. We did a kind of marketing video about the law course. Wow, was it a year ago? Something like that. It feels like a long time ago, but I think it was about a year ago. And they did a lot of student interviews and talking to students for that video. And the thing that came out that I was so proud of, that just organically came from the students, that the best part about the course here was the support. And I was, you know, we can all teach law. Yeah. We can all cover those 7 core subjects. You know, we can all drone on about negligence and tort law, which I do, and all these things. But to hear from students that the thing that stuck with them the most was the support, that was so meaningful. And so natural and honest and genuine and authentic and all these things, because none of it was scripted. None of it was scripted. This is just what they said. And that really meant something, I think. It really did. So to answer your question, we offer a lot of support. So some of it is structured and formal. Mm-hmm. So like you said, we have the personal academic coaching approach. So every student is assigned a coach, and we meet with them a minimum of twice a year to help them identify goals, what obstacles there might be to achieving those goals, and facilitating their own solution finding, right? So we do that as the formal sense, but I think it's the informal stuff that really comes through. We have been nationally recognized for our staff to student ratio, which means we know all of our students. You know, you're not really just a face in a crowd of 200 students. You know, you are Laura, you are Sam, you know, I know you. I know, you know, what you're good at, what you're not good at, what worries you, what doesn't worry you. And I'm here to help support you through that. And I think that really shines through because, you know, students have complex lives. Yeah, it's not, you know, it's not like it was when I went to university, which was an embarrassingly long time ago. You know, lives are complex. They have competing demands. They have families, they have caring responsibilities, they have part-time jobs. You know, there's a lot going on, and it's not just it's not just your course that you're focusing on. There's a lot going on, and we really recognize that, and we really want to be able to support students in navigating choppy waters. And I don't think any student has graduated without having some kind of a hiccup, right? Wow. Everyone has a hiccup, and we're there
part of life
to help you get through that hiccup without having to disrupt your studies too much, or without having to, you know, even if students do take time off, we're here to help them come back. And just to make sure all those options are there and that we can really tailor our support to students. And it's that relationship, you know. And even if there aren't any hiccups, just for the students to know that we know them, you know.
Exactly that, isn't it?
If they say, oh, I've got to go look after my sister today, I know what that means, right? I understand that there's complicated family life, which means you do have to go look after your sister today. And that's okay. I'll make sure you get caught up. We'll have a tutorial. We'll help you through that. And I think that does make our course quite unique as well.
Definitely. It's good to know, like to say to any students or prospective students listening, that is in place. I think it is really important to anybody to be seen as an individual and to know that not one size fits all, and actually this person really knows me, they know what I'm going through, and like you said, just so you know where you do need to offer that little bit extra, or like say catching up with things, and or have you accessed this through our online learning environment, do you need me to signpost you to it? And I think when we speak to students as well, I think the amount of them who say they just appreciate having that face-to-face interaction with just a person who actually cares about their learning and their learning journey and things. It's really important. Like you said, the support that your course provides is definitely exemplary, I would say. So it really is great.
I mean, even just walking into the recording studio, Sam and I passed one of our students and I said, "Oh, hi, student X, I've seen your email this morning. I haven't gotten to read it yet, but I will read it. Don't worry." And the student was like, "Okay, thank you. I'll wait for your answer." Just there's no escaping.
You bump into people that say, "Oh yes, I promise I will respond to your emails." Like you said, it's busy, but we get some really great feedback from students saying they do feel supported in general here, which is like you said, the proof's in the pudding, isn't it, of all those things that the course is put in place for students as well. It's really important, and we try and signpost as much as we can as well, so students know what's going on. But
so you mentioned about some of the amazing careers that our alumni have gone on to, both locally and further afield. Could you maybe give some examples of where they've gone, maybe companies that they're working at now?
Yeah, so we have a really strong relationship with Burkitt's, which is a law firm. It's a national law firm, but they have a very big office here in Ipswich. And we have a wonderful relationship with them. So one of their partners sits on our board of directors for the whole university. One of their partners does a lot of teaching for us. We do a lot of educational sessions, so our students get to go to Burkitt's once a year for an exclusive sort of networking learning evening, and they come here to do commercial awareness sessions. And I can say we now have 3 alumni who are working there. So I think that's a great example of some really strong linkages, and to have 3 alumni working there is pretty cool. We also have someone who has recently taken up a solicitor apprenticeship role at Willis. So that's a new one, which is great. If you're in Ipswich, you'll know that building. Yeah. We have a student who's recently passed her solicitor's qualifying exam. So she's now a qualified solicitor who works in the council. So she's a solicitor in Suffolk County Council. We have quite a few paralegals in the area, different law firms. We have a few other qualified solicitors at THB, which is another local, but lots of local law firms. So Christchurch, Goatley, THB, a lot of the local law firms. And again, further afield, we have students who are, recently qualifying as solicitors at different law firms. So law firms, Willis, we've got a few who've gone on to do graduate apprenticeships, paralegals, the council.
A lot. There's
citizens advice. I forgot about that. We've got some who are now actually qualified solicitors working in citizens advice.
It's kind of feeding back into the community, isn't it? Which is amazing, especially if you are local to the area as well, and saying you get to go out and support the people in your hometown, or generally just supporting the public as well with law and understanding it. It's great how much the students here are feeding into our community. It really is
absolutely
so important, really is.
And in a different vein, we do have some postgraduate offerings as well. So we actually now have some alum who've loved us so much that they haven't left, which is great. So we have an LLM, which is a master's in law in criminal law and justice, which is really interesting. I don't think the title does it justice, but it's a crossover between learning about criminal law and psychology, which is really interesting. Okay. So understanding the psychology of a courtroom and victim statements and forensic psychology and how that plays into criminal justice. So really, really interesting course. That's new. This was the first year we've done it. There's also a master's in criminology that some of our students have gone on to do. And we also support PhD students. So we have, we're just about to, in the next year, fingers crossed, complete our first law PhD. And that was an alum.
Oh,
nice.
So it was someone who did their undergraduate degree, enjoyed their dissertation so much that they didn't want to let it go. And they said, I want to keep doing this for another 4 years. And they are. So we're just about to finish our first law. Well, I say just about. We're getting there. But so there's a lot of opportunities for students to continue with their studies here at the university as well, which I think is great. And we're seeing more students kind of stick around to do post-grad work as well, which is great.
It's it's just like you said, if they feel like, we mentioned this earlier, if they feel like there's more for them to research, there's more for them to say, and it's the fact that they can stay here to do that, and with course teams who already know them as well, that's great. I mean, yeah, the criminal law and justice course, September I think it started.
It did, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so it'd be good. It's good to hear more about it, because I kind of, like you said, the title probably doesn't cover everything, as it were. So, so with that, do you have any advice for students submitting their university application for the law course?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We just a few weeks ago did an information session with Burkitt, and they do a program called SMILE, and it's social mobility in law, something with an E on the end. I don't know, I can't remember what the E is. But essentially it's for year 12 students who maybe wouldn't be exposed to legal careers. So it's kind of students who may be first generation looking at university, where, you know, law might not be present in their daily lives. So they do this, qualify for the social mobility work experience over the Easter holidays. And so we just did an information session with some of the SMILE students from at Burkitt's and talked about their applications. So very timely question. And I think the thing that I would really stress is you don't have to have any specific law experience to study law. You know, I think if you're doing, you know, if you want to go into medicine, you probably need to take biology, chemistry, physics, A levels, right? I think if you're going into, I don't know, something a bit more, you know, business, you probably need to have done business or economics at A levels. You really don't have to have done law at A levels to be successful in a law course. So I'm very encouraging to students to say, don't feel that you won't be accepted if you haven't done anything relating to law, because law is all around us. It is everywhere. Everyone is touched by it, and everyone has some kind of a sense of social justice and some kind of a sense of, you know, lawyers do help people.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
They do help people, and oftentimes they help people in their hour of most need. Nobody wants to need a family lawyer.
No, but
right?
It happens, doesn't it? So.
Nobody wants to be sorting out wills and estates. But these are things that solicitors help you through. Nobody wants to have an encounter with the criminal justice system, but lawyers are there to help support people through these times of need. And I think that anyone can tap into that. So if you're thinking about studying law, but you haven't done anything relating to law, that doesn't matter. Just talk about your passions in your application and how you want to help make the world a better place, right? Definitely. And that will come through.
I think more than ever we need that. We need, like you said, that social justice, that understanding, and like quite rightly pointed out, law is everywhere. Like policies are constantly changing and evolving, and if you're in that place where you understand the law and the logistics behind why those policies are changing, you can support a person, like you said, who it's really impacting on them and saying, actually, this is why it's in place. It might not be to your advantage, but it's why it's there, you know. And it's, I think I love the social justice side. Sounds really, really interesting and really impactful. Yeah.
I mean, so one of the brilliant ways which students can learn more about courses is coming to open days. So could you maybe chat a bit about what students can expect from open days and maybe some of the key questions that they ask at open days and what your answer to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we do have another open day coming up. Again, I don't know when this is coming out, but we shall see.
Yes,
there is a summer
off.
open day, which I will be running that open day for law. So if you want to come see what I look like, come along and come to that open day. So the open days are a great way to get to know the university, just to have a wander around, not relating to law at all. But as I was walking over, so we are in one building, which is kind of on one side of our campus, and my office and main teaching space is in another building. So I had the opportunity to walk from point A to point B today, which is lovely because I don't often get to do that. And I know as a university, we've made a real effort to have green spaces here. Yes. And I think if you looked at where we are on a map, you would not expect that. No. Blue spaces on the waterfront, yes, but green spaces, no. And even just as I was walking across here, I was thinking, wow, look at those wildflowers in that patch that are coming up. Or, you know, actually there's a lot of trees here, which we are just smack in the middle of the town.
It's the well-being allotment.
It's amazing. You know, Laura, I have done some of my personal academic coaching sessions in the allotments.
Oh, I love that.
So
I
we are like,
the lecturers asking me if that's a possibility. It's open to everybody. You don't have to book. You just go and use the space.
Go.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. You know, we're having these coaching sessions, and we used the GROW model for coaching, and we were literally having these sessions in and amongst all these growing fruits and veggies and plants, and it was amazing. And so to link that to an open day, I think if you just kind of look at pictures or see where we are on a map, you don't have that sense. We're actually, for where we are, it's a lovely green space and it's a beautiful campus, and I think that, not specific to law, but, you know, that's a really important thing that you will get a sense of if you come join us on an open day. We also do some time in the courtroom. So you can see our practical working space. You know, it's a really core part of our law course is that courtroom. We use it for all kinds of things. So I was, you know, I'm going to segue a little bit here. But I was telling Sam just as we started that just a few weeks ago, we had our first mock mental health tribunals. And that was in the courtroom space. And it was a joint collaborative effort between law, mental health nursing, and social work. And students from all three of those courses came together to do these mock tribunals. We had 3 throughout the day. So they were given different roles to play. And it was very representative of a real world scenario. And so we had, you know, the tribunal panel in the real world has a judge who's a legal professional, you know, a lay person who usually has some kind of social work background, and a doctor who has that clinical background like the mental health nursing students do. So it was this wonderful experience in the courtroom, just as an example of how we use that courtroom. That was a really intense day. I mean, it was very, very intense, but the students had an incredible experience working with students from other professions, other backgrounds, using different words, different professional language, but all for the same goal of needing to make a really thoughtful, sensitive decision applying the law, because it is about applying the law
completely
to an individual. And we had someone playing the role of the service user, of the person who had been sectioned. And the whole point of the tribunal is they're basically saying, I don't think I need to be sectioned anymore. But it's a independent tribunal that needs to ultimately make that decision. So we did that in the courtroom, again, just to say how we use that space and some of the opportunities here. But these are the kinds of things we talk about at open day, to say this is the courtroom. These are the kinds of things we do in the courtroom. So that mental health tribunal was part of that ethics, justice, and the legal profession module. So as part of all that experiential and authentic learning. So we do talk a bit about the course here, but it's a lot of going into the courtroom, feeling the space. We have the robes. So we get on an open day, you know, get those robes on, stand in the courtroom, feel what it feels like, take some pictures.
Like selfie in the courtroom.
Absolutely. When we have outreach sessions, we have a lot of year 12 students coming onto campus, and those who select a law session, we do, it's one of my favorite sessions. It's a mini defamation trial about witches.
Ooh, I've heard about this.
Oh, have you?
I have. I've heard it's really great. I forgot what student, it might have been history, or somebody mentioned it and were really raving about it. So I'd love to go to something like that.
I absolutely love it. So we do that session up there, and so that's a lot of year 12 students, and they have to, when we do the little mini trial, like sort of whether they want to or not, they have to put the robes on, and you know, they're all a little bit embarrassed at first, and then they put the robes on and think, actually, this is really cool. And there's loads of pictures at the end in the courtroom with the robes on. So
it's really important, like like you said, when you look at a campus map, it's not always obvious what's there. So the amount of times we say as I've done some of the open days, and from a student experience point of view, and we say about the facilities that we have, and we said about the mock courtroom, and the amount of students who, like prospective students, saying, no, what? We're like, yeah, it's on the top floor. Even current students don't always realise it's there. So the fact that you're able to give the opportunity for 3 completely separate courses to come together in that situation where in the real world, they probably would all be put together.
Yeah,
but
of
to
course.
give them that opportunity, I mean, that's unheard of. I'd never heard about that from anywhere else, really.
No,
So
and it's the
that's
first year we've done it.
amazing.
It could have all gone really wrong, but it didn't. It didn't. It was brilliant, and the students raved about it. And
Can imagine.
yeah, it was. I'm still smiling.
I'm
still smiling. It
And
was
like
great.
it's providing those different ways of teaching as well. It's not just sitting there listening to someone talking at you in a lecture. It's experiencing all the different, nuances that law brings. Like you said, you've got like the mental health nurse, you've got social work. It's so important for them to really experience that they probably are going to end up in a courtroom at some point in their if they choose to go down that career path. So it's really important to have those opportunities given to them as well. So I can imagine that's really exciting for new students, especially they get to do that. So
We also it was such an exciting week. The week after the mock mental health review tribunals, we had our local MP, Jack Abbott, speak to students as well.
Yeah.
So in that ethics, justice, and legal profession, it's a great module. I really love that module. We do something called co-production, which is where students design. We have 3 teaching sessions at the end of the module that are blank. And co-production is students in the beginning of the module engage in facilitated workshops to fill in those blanks.
Ooh.
So essentially it says, what do you want to learn? And it can be something related to the module. It can be something related to a previous module. It can be skills. It can be something completely new. And throughout that facilitated workshop, something that came out that the students wanted to learn more about that they'd heard about in the news was the new assisted dying bill.
Yes. Yeah.
And as I was trying, so the students essentially picked the topic and a general outline of what the session might look like, but then it's up to me as the faculty to actually make it happen. And as I was looking into how to deliver a session on assisted dying, I saw that Jack Abbott was actually on the scrutiny committee for the assisted dying bill.
Oh, okay.
And I had recently read that he had been on campus with the student union,
Yes.
having a look
Yes,
around and whatnot. And I thought, oh, what the heck? I'm just going to ask. And I did. I emailed him and I said, I know it's a long shot, but our students really want to learn about this. You're on the committee. Do you fancy meeting up? And he said, yes. I couldn't believe it. And so he did have to join us from Westminster. So it was,
even more
he
exciting.
right. So he sort of beamed in. And so our level 4 students had, it was a wonderful session with Jack Abbott, who sits on the committee talking about what they discussed and debated with this new incredibly difficult, sensitive piece of legislation. And that was an amazing experience as well. This is, students said, yeah, we'd like to learn more about this bill. And then within, 4 weeks, they're sitting in a room talking to Jack Abbott, who's our local MP, who sits on the committee, who's talking to us from Westminster, giving us really inside candid information about what was discussed and debated behind closed doors on this particular piece of legislation. And that followed on. These students in January did a field trip to Houses of Parliament. And so they'd been there sort of seeing Houses of Parliament and a few other bits and bobs in London just before speaking. So it was a great opportunity. Wow. I don't know how I got on that topic. I'm sorry.
No, but it's that added reason of what students when they do decide to come here, what possibilities there are, let alone the things that you always have.
Like exams.
Mandatory, exactly. Like we have to do that, but it balances out, like you said, with so many additional opportunities and the chance to talk, like you say, to a local MP who's there in the thick of it with things going on.
It was amazing.
Incredible.
It was a great session. It was amazing.
Wow,
it was amazing that he's that supportive of the university that he
definitely
wanted to speak to our students about this. It was incredible. And I was really proud our students asked he wanted a lot of questions. So I lent on my students really hard to come up with some questions before. And they asked some amazing questions. And one of the questions that was asked, he actually stopped and went, well, that never came up in committee, but my goodness, it should have. Yep. And, so it was really incredible.
Like, if you don't ask, you don't get sometimes.
Yeah, but this is just it. And then at the end of the session, he said, well, we should do this again.
Oh, fantastic.
I thought, yes, oh my goodness, we should do this again.
Definitely. It all feeds in. It's part of practice and understanding, like you say, policy. And it does obviously cover some really, like quite sensitive subjects, like you said, but it kind of gives students the opportunity to ask, why are these things being put in place? What is being discussed in like the Houses of Commons and Parliament and things like that? But yeah.
I mean, that sounds like such an amazing opportunity for students, especially level 4 students, to sort of, experience these different opportunities. So what would you say to students for them to really get the most out of their course on top of just doing the minimum is to pass? What would you recommend to them?
So I think a lot of that is, I said earlier, we recognize that students have really complex lives. And I think if you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have said, do extracurricular activities. I think that's really hard for students now. And I think it's ignorant and arrogant of us to expect that students can stick around after class to do stuff of their own time. Yeah. So what we have tried to do is to embed what would have traditionally been an extracurricular activity into our curriculum. So for example, within the first year, something that a lot of law schools host is something called a mooting competition, right? So that takes place in the courtroom, and the idea is it's a mock appeal hearing in a high court environment. So you're arguing a point of law, and it's a competition, right? And there you usually are partnered up, and you go through different rounds, and then the winners progress to the next round, and so on and so forth, until there's the ultimate winner. And in most law courses, those things are offered as an extracurricular, do it in your own time. However, we want to make sure all students have that opportunity. So we have actually embedded our mooting competition into a module. So all level 4 students do our mooting competition because it's in class time. Yep. It's in the day, it's in the timetable, it's when you're expected to be here as part of your course learning. So I think, Sam, that's a really interesting question. And I think what I would say is that we try to make sure you can do everything you need to do to get those experiences within the courses in the curriculum. So as long as students rock up and come along, then I think, rock up and be open. Those are the things I would say are realistically the most important things. Let your learning journey go, right? Go where it takes you. See it as a journey, as kind of metaphysical as that sounds. It's really true, It is a learning journey, and you do need to be open. And maybe you came here thinking, I'm going to be a corporate lawyer, and by the end, we've got you working in citizens' advice on employment law or something. Yeah, exactly. So, use the opportunities that we have provided in the curriculum to explore and to learn and to be open.
That's great.
Brilliant.
Full stop.
So before we move on to chat a bit about yourself and your journey to becoming a lecturer and your experiences here, is there anything else you'd like to say about the law course?
Yeah, I think I'm really proud of the law course that we've developed here. We haven't been around as long as some of the other law courses in the area or in the country, but I think that gives us a real advantage because we can design something that is relevant, that is student-centered, and that genuinely helps students achieve their goals, And like I said, we do have some students who rock up who say, I want to be a corporate lawyer. And that is steadfast, and that goes throughout their whole time here. And then by the end, we get them to a place where they're ready to qualify as a corporate lawyer. Or we have some students who start and they think, I have no idea what I want to do. Yeah. And we're supporting them on that journey. So, I think we are a very unique law course. We do have a very personal approach. We do offer a lot of tailored support, and we are really, really genuinely we are really genuinely keen on employability and committed to employability throughout all the different things we offer. And again, just having it all in the curriculum and with our legal advice center to give students everything they need to do whatever they want to do when they leave us, even if that is stick around for another 4 years.
Yeah, why not?
Stay with us, please. But yeah.
So it'd be great now to have a bit about chat about your journey as in your law career. So could you talk to us about what you're doing before you were here as a lecturer, and what made you want to apply for the role here as well?
So the short answer about applying for a role here was it was a sandwich. So my colleague and I had done some work together previously when the role came up, and he said, "Oh, do you want to meet for lunch?" And I was going, why do you want to meet for lunch? And then he bought me a sandwich. And I thought, why are you buying me a sandwich? So that's the short answer. I suppose the long answer is those of you who've been listening from the beginning have probably twigged that I am not from Ipswich. So it was a bit of a journey. So I'll just go back. I'm from the States. I grew up in Philadelphia. Wow. I went to university in Boston, and then I lived in New York for about 10 years before coming over here. So my undergraduate degree is actually in nonprofit management, and I focused on theater management. So a lot of people think that's very, very different from law, and actually no, that one of the greatest courtroom drama is quite real. Courtrooms are very theatrical spaces. And I think my background in arts and theater actually really helps me as a lecturer in making lectures. Oh, I hate lectures, so I hardly ever do a lecture anymore, but making our learning sessions fun and interactive and leading us through something that's more experiential. I then did, so in the States, you can't study law undergrad. There's no such thing as an undergraduate law degree.
Oh, wow.
It's all postgraduate.
Okay.
So in the States, it's a 3-year postgraduate taught degree with a research component. And the degree you get is a Juris Doctor. Mm-hmm. So it's meant to be just like a MD, like a medical doctor degree, but you're a Juris Doctor. So I did my JD in New York at New York University School of Law. And while I was there, I had some amazing opportunities. I worked in South Africa for a while.
Wow.
I was working out of the University of Pretoria, and I was doing work on looking at human rights violations of people living with HIV in and around the Johannesburg area. Really, really amazing work. I then had the opportunity to work in the health and human rights team at the World Health Organization headquarters in Geneva. This was all whilst I was doing my JD. So I worked in Geneva at the UN for a while.
Wow.
I then finished my law degree, passed the bar exam in New York.
Oh my goodness.
And I then decided to pursue a master's in public health because my focus during my JD had been on health and human rights. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to learn more about the health aspect of health and human rights. Mm-hmm. So I did a master's in public health in global public health at Columbia University, also in New York. And part of my program there was to do an international placement. So I lived in Poland for a while. And I was looking at sexual and reproductive rights across all of Central and Eastern Europe. So that was quite amazing. And then back to New York to finish up my degree. And also I forgot when I was doing my JD, I also did a placement at the Center for Reproductive Rights in New York, where I worked on litigation, and I was part of the team that brought a case against the Brazilian government for the unacceptably high rates of maternal mortality in the country. So there was a huge number of women dying in childbirth when they really shouldn't have been. And we mounted a legal case against the government and won.
Wow.
And so the government of Brazil was forced to change their policies and their funding and their approaches and their data collection. And we have since seen, this was a while ago, but we have since seen a significant decrease in maternal mortality in Brazil and in other countries, because other countries that also had similar problems saw that actually this could be a legal issue.
Yep.
And so that made a worldwide impact, really.
That's
Brilliant.
incredible. Wow, I was not expecting any of that to come out. I was sitting like gobsmacked, really.
So I did all that. So that was all while I was in New York. And then I moved over to London, and I worked in London for a while, and then settled down out in Norfolk, outside of Norwich.
Oh, okay.
I worked for a large international charity that was in Cambridge for a little while. And then when my children were very young, I did my PhD. So that was a really nice thing to do when my kids were, babies, right? Because you can kind of do it in your own time, but it still keeps you quite active. I'm sure you've guessed I'm not one to just sit at home. So I did my PhD before my kids started school, and I did that at UEA, which is where I met my colleague who bought the sandwich.
Oh, incredible.
So I did my PhD at UEA on a topic that came up through my work at the charity before I did that. And then did some teaching at UEA, and then heard about the program here at Suffolk and was really, really taken with what my colleague told me about. And, don't tell him this, but he didn't really have to buy me a sandwich. I would have come anyway, but I'll take a free sandwich.
Well, my goodness, we're so glad that you're here with all of that background and expertise that you've got. Oh, my goodness, that's incredible. What a journey. And it's still going.
Still going,
still
I
there.
know. My PhD has now been sort of changed and developed a bit more, and has just been published as a book. So that's super exciting as well. Yeah. So it's called #Activism and Women's Rights.
I've seen this and was going to ask you about that, but that's amazing.
Yeah. So it looks at the subtitle is Are social media campaigns really improving laws for women and girls? So I'm not going to tell you the answer because I want you to go get the book and read for yourself.
Incredible.
So yeah.
That's wow. I mean, I'm dreading asking this question because you're making me tired just hearing about all these different things. But so you obviously don't like to be bored. So
that's very true. Yeah.
What does a typical day look like for you at the university? Does it change? Is it like the same kind of things, or is it,
No, every day is different, like completely different. So I might be having, I also, this probably won't surprise anyone, but I also sit on University Senate, and I'm currently the staff representative on the board of directors. So I sit on Senate and board, which means I do a lot of committee work as well, a lot of kind of administrative work and governance work, which most people hate and I love. I absolutely love it. So that's what I mean. I have student meetings, I have course leader duties, I teach, I supervise PhDs, I supervise undergraduate dissertations, I supervise master's students' dissertations, I have my Senate meetings, I have my committee meetings, I have my board meetings. So no day is the same. And I'm research active, which means I'm still doing my own research. So I have days when I shut the door and I tell no one to talk to me.
Do not disturb.
Exactly. And I'm working on a couple of pieces of research at the moment, one of which is a study in conjunction with another university, with De Montfort University, that also does block. And we're looking at block learning specifically for law students at 2 different universities.
Okay.
Super cool. And working on a paper that looks at continuing my social media work, that looks at allegations of abuse related to the streaming platform Twitch. And looking at issues around what we call community-based policing, which is, on social media platforms, the primary form of regulation is user-based. So if you see something, you report it. Yeah, right. That's community-based policing, and that is problematic. And we're linking these allegations of abuse and people seeking justice informally to this notion of community-based policing. So I still do research as well. So that's really the quiet days.
I didn't know that was what it was called. So that's good to know that term. I mean, there's so many documentaries on different streaming platforms at the moment around like YouTube and people reporting, like influencers and different things like that. So to know it's actually it comes under something. And
it does, yeah.
That's really interesting.
So, I mean, we really can hear the passion and that you have for law and how much you enjoy it. So this might be quite a difficult question to ask. But what is your favourite part of the job?
It's when I have a really good teaching session.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes the planets align and what I've planned and the mood that the students are in and like the weather, I don't know, it all just comes together and I come out and I'm exhausted but elated. Yeah. So the day we did the mock mental health tribunals, right? That was such an incredible day, seeing the students together, seeing them work through such a difficult issue, seeing how that experience impacted them with the other students, you know, that was, whew, yeah, that is my favorite part. It's when those teaching moments just ping, and that's what it's all about for me.
You see it click in the students, that understanding, because they're there in it, doing it, not just learning about it as well. But that sounds I'd love to have been a fly on the wall, just to kind of, wow, it sounds so interesting.
I mean, you've done so much in your time at university already. We can hear how much you've done. So is there something maybe that you're most proud of?
Ooh. This is going to sound so silly. One of our students who has since graduated just wrote the loveliest thank you note when she graduated, and about what we had done for her and her experience here and how important we had been in her journey. And that, I was so proud. Yeah, I was so proud.
Definitely.
You know, that about, really, I still have it.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
And that's all the hard work that goes into a day-to-day running of a course as well. And like you said, all the other extracurricular things that you've recognised need to be part of the course. So, I mean, just that alone as well is something to be really proud of, amongst the many other things.
Yeah, so I think that's it. It's that thank you note.
I mean, this has been such an interesting chat we've had today, and I've certainly enjoyed it. You've sold the law degree to me.
Yeah, why not?
I want to know more.
I'm sure those that are listening probably feel the same. So we've come to our final question now, which is our answer one, ask one question. So
I've been both dreading and looking forward to this.
So you're going to answer a question from the previous guest, and then you're going to pose one to the next guest. So the question we've got for you is from a guest which has a keen interest in books and sort of creative writing. So her question was, what is your favourite book or piece of literature that you like to teach your students?
So I have two answers to that. One is the first half of the question. Okay. And one is the second half of the question. So one is the what's your favourite book or piece of literature answer, and one is the what's the one you like to teach your students sort of piece. So I'll do the second one first. And it was really interesting. I've had a lot of my academic books were in storage for a while, and we've just done some things so that they're on a bookshelf now. And I was taking them out just a couple weeks ago and putting them all on this bookshelf, and I came across this really old, crusty, worn book. And it's called Defending Pornography, and it's by Nadine Strossen. Mm-hmm. And Nadine Strossen was the president of the American Civil Liberties Union quite a long time ago. And she wrote a book around free speech and women's rights and the feminist agenda. And that, I think, was so formative for me as an academic and a researcher, because I read it when I was doing my Juris Doctorate in New York as part of a class. And as part of a project I did then. And, you know, all my little sticky flags are still in the book, and all my notes and everything I've highlighted in dog-eared pages, and I've read it so many times. And I think in terms of an academic text, that book meant so much to me. And it's not a big book, and it's not a book that's hard to read. It's not academically heavy, but it is powerful. And it was so amazing for me to take it out of storage and, you know, like blow the dust off the cover and kind of flick through again and go, wow. So I really hope I get to reread that again sometime soon and see, like, well, would I put a pink flag on the same page? You know, would I underline this still, or would it be something different? Because it has been in the boxes for a long time. So I think that's the second part of the answer. the first part of the answer, and this has nothing to do with law, but it's quite fun to talk about. I am a huge Stephen King fan.
Wow.
A huge Stephen King fan. In the world of Stephen King, I'm called a constant reader because that's what he calls his fans. And I've been doing it for a couple of years now, but I am doing a personal project to reread or read every work of fiction that he's written.
That's quite a feat.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah. And since I've started, he's published 4 new books. So I keep thinking you have to stop because I can't catch up. Yeah. So I'm currently at 67% done. I think I've got a spreadsheet. Obviously, I have a spreadsheet. Obviously, there's a spreadsheet, and I am ranking them and writing little notes to myself on everything.
That.
So I'm in this process of reading all of his fiction works. I say, everything he's written fiction, not nonfiction, although there's only a small handful of those. But so it is rereading things that I have read in the past I'm coming back to, or reading. And it is a combination of paper books and audiobooks as well, because I don't have enough time in my life to just do the paper books.
So audio in the background.
Yeah, exactly. So I have 3 favorite Stephen King books. And I every day it changes which is in the top. So it's either The Stand,
great choice,
Insomnia,
Ooh.
or Wizard and Glass, which is the 4th book of the Dark Tower series, which
I've heard
these are
vaguely
really
of Dark
like
Tower,
nerdy Stephen King books, right? Not The Stand. The Stand is a bit more well
Get
known.
made into a TV series this time.
Twice.
Yes, because I've watched the first time around. I remember watching and being quite biased.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah. So it was made into a TV miniseries in the 90s,
Yes,
and
that's
that
the
one was
I
good.
remember, yeah.
And then they tried to do it again, and no.
Yep.
But yeah, so those are my 3 favorite
Brilliant.
books,
Yeah.
and that's my current book project.
Oh, I love that. Oh. I thought it's a bit small. We've got like a ticking off what type of books you read in 2025 on our books, student experience book swap, but they're like different genres and different things. So that's not quite as niche as that.
It's extremely niche. I know. I've seen a couple of really fun sort of YouTubers who've done it, and that was what kind of inspired me. And I was like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I didn't think I realized just how long it would take. But I will tally up at the end how many pages it is. He had quite a bad alcohol addiction for a while, and there's one book that he says he doesn't actually remember writing.
Oh, goodness.
I know. So there you can really track the ups and downs of his life when you read everything together. And I'm not going in any order. There's no chronological order.
Like
it's not.
that.
I'm just reading. I'm just picking stuff up and reading it as it comes along.
Dip in and out of different ones. Yeah, I think it would be too much hassle to do it in order. I think.
Yeah. You just got to go with it.
But yeah,
yeah. So it's been a wild ride, and I'm still on it.
Yeah. So how about a question for our next guest? Have you got anything?
Yeah. So when we first sat down, I sort of said I had 2, and I've definitely picked one. So this relates to what we talked about earlier about the campus. And my question for the next person is, what is your favorite place on campus and why?
love that. Really love that. There's just
Lovely
so
question.
many different places, isn't there, to organise it? It's different for different people according to where you're based as well. So yeah.
Brilliant question.
Wow.
Look forward to asking that one, and brilliant answer as well to the previous question as well.
Yeah, I think I know who did the previous question, so I'm gonna tell her what my answers were.
Yeah. So thanks again for joining us, Reilly. It's been a really fascinating, interesting chat about the law course
pleasure,
and about your journey as well. So till next time, goodbye from Reilly.
Goodbye.
Goodbye from Laura.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to the Student Experience podcast. If you would like to be a future guest, email studentexperiencesteam@uos.ac.uk or follow the links to our application form through our Brightspace page. You can also reach out to us through our Instagram page @UOS_student experience.